to another Keelhauled podcast. I'm your host, Captain Logan, and we've got a lot of Sea of Thieves news to cover today, so tie yourselves to the mast and hold fast. Ahoy there, pirates. I hope you had yourselves a good week and a good weekend. I know I did. This week, we're going to be talking about the latest dev update, some thoughts on Greymarrow and Captain Flameheart, as well as the Festival of Giving on December 11th. Deck the halls, all that and more on this week's episode of Keelhauled Podcast. First up on today's docket, I did want to talk about some interesting speculation about a random thought I had recently in Sea of Thieves, because recently we've been getting the Tall Tale 10, which gives us the Seabound Soul, and kind of uncover some information about some different pirates that we know, but don't know a whole lot, or maybe even if they are or aren't connected. So I wanted to bring up some speculation that I had in regards to Greymarrow. Now, Captain Greymarrow, as you know, is one of the skeleton lords that we have fought in Tall Tales 7 and 8, helping release the trapped souls of the crew of the Morning Star. And with Greymarrow, we have learned that he is actually imbued with some special powers, maybe that he learned, maybe that he earned. It's hard to tell. But mostly that he is able to lock souls within objects or within bodies. And recently we found out, thanks to Tall Tale 10, the Seabound Soul, that the great Captain Flameheart, who I believe to be senior, is in fact trapped within his body. So one of the ideas that I had was, would it be possible to suggest that Captain Flameheart is trapped by Captain Greymarrow? And when Captain Flameheart speaks at the end of Tall Tale 9, he gives quite the lengthy rant and talks about how he was betrayed by his kind. And it makes me wonder if he's talking about skeletons. And if he's talking about skeletons, then that's great. But if he was killed as a human, that's a little tougher to work out. And that's something where we have to go back into the past to take a look at what we have and try to suss out, just based on the small amount of information that we have, what could feasibly be possible. Now, I've been in a pretty good discussion and debate with Voodoo Icon on Twitter about this, something that even caught the eye of Mike Chapman, where we kind of dive into the Tall Tales, or the Tales from the Sea of Thieves books, where in one of the first few pages, it actually talks about Captain Flameheart Jr., speaking about his father and how his father was a pirate, and he told his son tales of the adventures that he had, both when he was adopted as a child, but also later on as he was growing, and says that his father was always there for him, and that his father eventually settled down on a magnificent estate in which Flameheart Jr. is actually residing as he begins his story about how he wants to become a pirate. Some of the things that are suggested by Voodoo in particular is that Flameheart Sr. actually died in or outside of the Sea of Thieves, which would make it relatively tough for Greymarrow to be the one who ended up killing him and trapping his soul. And we got into a bit of debate about how the semantics of settling down. When someone settles down, are they calming down or are they retiring? Unfortunately, with the information that we're given, there's not a whole lot of detail. I obviously, for most people, you will listen to that and you'll think settled down means retired. So obviously he would have stayed at his estate and stayed there. But just based on the Athena's fortune, I know that Ramses at one point must have settled down to have the Singh twins, or I don't know if they're twins, but brother and sister, Lissetti and DeMarco. And at some point, he actually made it back to Sea of Thieves to confront Ramses on the Shores of Gold, where he had become that cursed creature that we now know as the Gold Hoarder. So even though, say, Ramses was probably retired and may not have actually said that he was retired, he definitely gave up the drive to be a pirate and steal treasure and have adventures. He eventually kind of calmed down and made his way back to the Sea of Thieves, or outside the Sea of Thieves, to actually get to have a family and enjoy some of that life that he had on the other ends. So I wanted to bring this up because I wanted to pose it to you as the listener. Is it possible that if Greymarrow had gotten in contact with Flameheart Sr. before he had passed away, could he have cursed his body so that when he did die, say if he died of natural causes, that he would have been able to rise back up as a skeleton lord that he is and make his way back to the Sea of Thieves? One of the things that kind of picks at my brain in this argument of whether or not Flameheart Sr. died outside the Sea of Thieves is how did the ship bearing his coffin bring him back to Sea of Thieves to be buried in the Devil's Roar? It seems like one of those things that people would have noticed, a galleon with a crew of undead sailing to get to his estate to pick up his body. Also, it doesn't talk too much about or things that also kind of bug me, not so much that things are talked about, but things that kind of bug me about this theory is that we know that the Flaming Blade was in fact Captain Flameheart Sr.'s ship, a ship that was actually chasing after Ramses as they were searching for the Shroudbreaker. In the first Tall Tale, it expresses how the Burning Blade, Captain Flameheart's ship, was chasing after him. And it's hard to know, like, at what point did Captain Flameheart Sr. live, become a pirate, travel to Sea of Thieves, amass amount of reputation, because I can't really say gold, but I can speak to his reputation, come back, adopt a child fairly shortly after birth, raise that child, and then end up a skeleton lord. There's this huge gap of time that isn't covered in the one page of a book that speaks about Captain Flameheart as a captain skeleton lord. But we know that he sailed with a pirate captain who is just referred to as Captain, C-A-P-N, or Captain. And we don't know anything about Captain. We know that he trained Flameheart, or that Flameheart was at least part of his crew, and that at some point Flameheart got his own ship. We don't know if he killed Captain and took the ship. We don't know if Captain bestowed a ship to him and he took command of a new ship to help with an armada. But we do know that Captain Flameheart at one point was a skeleton scourge. We don't know for sure. Well, actually, it's hard to even say that's accurate because we don't know if the Burning Blade was crewed by humans. I just assume that it was skeletons, but in all honesty, I can't actually say, because it seems like Captain Flameheart had a bit of an affinity for ships and fire. The Burning Blade, obviously indicative of the burning cannonballs that it fired on ships as it sailed around. That is evident in Tall Tale 1, and also with the Ashen Dragon, the trusted ship that was used basically to take his coffin to the Devil's Roar after recovering it and being attacked by multiple galleons for the sake of good treasure. They managed to sink other galleons using flaming cannonballs as well. So there's obviously a correlation between what Flameheart likes to use as his main type of weaponry when it comes to ships, kind of keeping in brand with his name. But we don't know much more about that. And the more I think about it, the more I realize that the likelihood of Captain Greymarrow being the one who entrapped his soul within his body seems less likely. But it's interesting that Captain Sir Arthur Pendragon isn't aware of Captain Flameheart and wasn't the one that trapped his soul. That Captain Flameheart mentioned being trapped by his, or I'm trying to remember, it was betrayed. I think it was betrayed by his kind, which is another interesting thing to understand is if that's the case, then who actually betrayed him? And we're trying to understand, like, if he was betrayed by his kind, what skeletons would betray him? Or if he was betrayed by his human kind, the kind of people that he doesn't consider himself anymore because he's a skeleton, and he was betrayed by his human kind, and his human kind killed him, and that's how he became a skeleton lord after his body was trapped. Or maybe this is even the start of Captain Flameheart's skeleton reign, and that he kind of was out on the Sea of Thieves as a very vicious and reputable pirate, as a human the whole time. And we've only ever seen pictures of Captain Flameheart as a skeleton, so it's always been assumed that his reputation is based on being a skeleton and not a human. And I wonder if we'll ever see him as a human and understand if that was something that was before he was cursed and killed. There's so many questions in right now, and some of this kind of falls back on the conversation that I had last week, where I was talking about this being the start of the next character story arc that we're going on as we kind of get into this new set of Tall Tales. It'll be interesting to see if Rare is going to continue down the numbered path with the Tall Tales, so the next one in line will be Tall Tales 1, or if they'll consider the current Tall Tales one chapter in a story, and the next chapter will focus on a different arc that doesn't follow the same story arc as what I would say is the Gold Hoarders. The Shores of Gold is essentially the Gold Hoarders. It was interesting that the Seabound Soul itself wasn't numbered similar to the way that the original 9 were. And I'm starting to think that maybe if we get more Tall Tales, that they will start to break those into actual chapters. So something like 1 through 9 will be chapter 1, 10 through 18 will be chapter 2. Things like that will kind of give us a better flow through for what story we're actually following on as we kind of move through these lore generated missions. It's to kind of get back to the original statement. I really appreciate Voodoo Icon for debating with me. It was a lot of fun to see if we could poke holes in each other's arguments. And essentially what it came down to was a disagreement about how finite or how final terms like settling down are, because in my mind, if you settle down, you may slow down, you may not quit entirely, but there's been plenty of things where people have retired and then come out of retirement. So it's not a foreign concept, and to think of retirement as like a quitting of jobs completely, I tend to think of retirement as retiring from this career to move on to do something that you want to do, whereas most people will generally retire to escape having to work. It just doesn't seem like such a feasible concept in our current generation, and for future generations. I think we'll probably have to work for a very long time, unless you happen to make it to a place in your life where you can actually put away quite a bit of money for the future. So I wanted to say thanks, Voodoo. He really knows his lore. He was really good at kind of talking to different points, and I wanted to thank he and his wife for listening to the podcast. I really appreciate that, and look forward to future discussions about lore, because I love when we get in the weeds and we start nitpicking little things and seeing if there are discrepancies in the lore, because right now it's kind of a little weird. This is always kind of the problem when we have lore discussions, because to be perfectly honest, it's hard to know if what we're saying now is accurate because of the information we have, or because it's accurate because that's how it always is. Like we don't quite know what's going to happen with Wanda, but with Wanda, I'm pretty sure we're going to find out pretty soon because according to a tweet that came out from Rare, Sea of Thieves account, there is going to be a new update on December 11th. Next up on today's docket, let's dive into the weekly dev update. Now, dev updates are always weekly, but they don't always have as much information as they do as this one. And to be perfectly honest, if I'm being 100% honest here, there wasn't a whole lot of information, but it was what you had to read between the lines that I think was really, really nice. Now, if you listened to last week's episode, which hopefully you did, you'll know that I spoke about how there are some truly frustrating bugs in this game, and that those bugs are really kind of hindering some of the joy that you have when playing. And this seems to be a very large sentiment within the Sea of Thieves community overall. Even people that I don't normally hear talk about these kind of things are starting to come out, and there's good reason. There's some interesting thoughts behind what we could be looking at in the future and what we hope for soon. So to get back to the point that I was trying to make, the dev update video announced that the December 11th update, the Festival of Giving, will be a little bit lighter as far as content, but what it will bring are some quality of life improvements, specifically towards combat. Now, this is just what's spoken about. This isn't necessarily everything that's coming. I very much assume that when we do get a chance to see the final patch notes, that there's actually going to be quite a bit more actually finished as far as bug fixes, which if this is what I'm hoping, and these quality of life fixes come in, that hopefully the game will be a lot more stable and will be having less issues. There are still some major problems that I see with certain things that are coming that or things that have happened that are frustrating. Namely, the way that we can anticipate servers being merged, and the technology that they've used to help kind of shift people from servers that are low pop to servers that are high pop as more and more people start and quit and new servers get ramped up. That whole process has become completely obscured to how that works. Before, if you were on a dead server, until you actually dropped your anchor, or say you got to everyone off the island or everyone on the island and everyone back on or onto the ship, it would hold off on merging you to a new server. Typically, that would be a good way to test and see if you were on a dead server, is just to drop anchor and see if you got merged. And if you did, then you could anticipate seeing a bunch of new crew. But part of the problem comes back to something I think I actually mentioned quite a bit ago, where I was talking about how frustrating it is to try and plan out your night when you're on a server that is dying and doesn't have as many people. And as you kind of plot your course, you're trying to go out and do stuff. If you get merged halfway through that list of things to do, it's frustrating because not only are you on a foreign server, but you don't have the things that you were planning on doing, say like emergent things as far as skeleton ships, forts, Reaper's chests, things like that. Things that actually draw that kind of desire to have an immersive gameplay style, as opposed to something that's so straightforward with like a voyage. So things like that I would definitely love to see worked on. But to get to the actual video, Joe talked about combat tweaks and how a lot of these combat tweaks are going to be focused on making it so that the swordplay feels more fluid, because right now it's everything but fluid. It doesn't feel like when I'm actually playing with a sword that I can depend on a sword swing being like a natural movement for me. Like if I swing my sword and I miss it, I'm getting 3, 4, maybe 5 clicks on my mouse in before I get to actually swing again. And I don't actually know what that time is between swings if I miss. So that's getting shortened. So I should be able to reliably swing my sword and then swing my sword again, even if I miss. They're also speaking about how if you successfully block a sword blow with yours, if you actually block a sword blow, then you're going to be able to recoup after that. There's no longer going to be a stun that is locking you in place, making it harder to retaliate, because that should be the payoff. Is if you successfully block sword blows, like 3 successive sword blows, then the opponent should be actually penalized for that. Like they get knocked back, and you should be able to retaliate because you were prepared. The other thing that they're talking about is making the equip delay part of the sword as well too. So if you're familiar with how they tackled the double gun thing that was going on back almost a year ago. It was about a year ago when double gun started getting so rampant that people were starting to really complain about it on the forums and Reddit. And subsequently, the fix to that was to add a delay between when you actually pull out your pistol or your blunderbuss or your eye of reach. That mechanic is actually being brought to swords as well. So when you are planning on attacking someone with your sword, expect a bit of a delay between when that happens. They did say that they're going to be doing other things that will help with people on PC who are macroing the sword swing, because right now, if you want to, you can set up a macro that what it'll do will cancel the animation for the delay between swings by stowing and unstowing your sword. So effectively, you get infinite swings. Every like one swing, stow, bring it back out, swing, stow, bring it back out. And if you macro that, you can effectively stun lock someone, killing them instantly. Well, not instantly, but within a short amount of time. And hopefully that gets fixed, because that's kind of a really, really bad break in how the actual gameplay is designed, how the actual sword play is designed, and needs to be broken so that people can't macro that. They also talked about being able to get a kind of a it's hard to like a tracer for like gun rounds, where you shoot something and you can kind of see the path that it takes. When you swing your sword, you're going to get these little sword trails, so you'll understand what direction the sword swing is actually swinging at. I don't necessarily know why this was something that they're adding, but it's another visual indicator for you. If that's what you need, then that's what you get. You get to see that actual sword slash. And what they're planning on doing is something that will help give you more information about what damage you're taking is, or what direction the damage that you're taking is coming, by offering kind of directional indicators on the screen. So if you're getting hit from behind, then that should show down at the bottom. Whereas if you're getting hit from the front, you should be seeing damage indicators from the front. Likewise, if you're getting hit on your left side, it should be on the left side of the screen, right side. I like this. It brings a little more information for players to understand, so they can better deal with incoming damage, to know like who's hitting them from where. And hopefully, this was something that came up on a thread about accessibility. And there is a lot that Sea of Thieves, or that the team at Rare has done to try and bring more inclusion with disabled people who have a hard time being able to see things. They brought in colorblind modes. They brought in reduce the hold items, so that it's easier to hit a button and have the actual interaction happen without necessarily having to hold down a button. And one of the things that I was hoping that they would bring is a way to visually show audible cues, things that people know. Like if you're playing Sea of Thieves, you definitely know what it sounds like when someone lights a keg and drops it at your feet. But if you can't hear, you'll never hear that. You'll never know that until it's too late. And there's a finite amount of time. So I've been trying to think of ways that they could do a captioned mode, where they could actually put up captions if something happens near them that might be a deadly threat, or just things in general to help try and implement a way to bring people who can't hear a way to still play the game without missing very, very important cues as far as like a megalodon spawning or a ship spawning or a kraken happening or someone grabbing the ladder or someone swimming near your ship or a powder keg skeleton or a proper clue that you unlock after doing a tall tale. Things like this, that if you aren't necessarily looking at something, then we would rely on the audible cue for that. But if you can't hear it, then that's lost. And that's important information, especially in a game that relies so heavily on audible cues for things. So I like that Rare is listening to the feedback and are able to start quickly implementing some of these desires to work on some of the current system mechanics for the game. Just to bring up one more point, I wanted to bring up Jeff Pegleg Perez, who, if you've ever been in the shop, you've seen his peg leg for sale. And he actually brings up a 4-line or a 4-thread or 4-post thread on Twitter discussing Sea of Thieves and his thought of the day. He speaks out and says that another year is wrapping up and the state of Sea of Thieves is marvelous. The framework laid out in March of 2018 has matured into a robust, dynamic, and endlessly impressive experience for those who like to live the simulated Buccaneer life. With the experience of the game settled well into a monthly groove, here are some things I would like to see added / updated / revisited in 2020. Number 1, Xbox. A 1080 60 frames per second mode for the Xbox One X. It seems odd to me, Jeff, that this wasn't offered from the get-go. Environment collision. Movement throughout the world still feels clunky and frustrating due to getting stuck on various rocks, props, shipwrecks, etc. Also, the auto teleport to ship should be reworked to a safe spot nearby. And what he means by that is, say you're on an island and you get stuck in a tree. Instead of getting teleported back to your ship, which could be very far away, and he even explains that instead it would just be to a safe place near to where you were. That way you can intentionally take a mermaid if you need to get back to your ship and not get forced back to your ship if you are happen to be hopping around, slip and fall in a space where you can't get out and you don't want to eat your arm off to get out. I guess he cut his arm off, didn't he? I can't remember. I didn't watch the movie because I heard about that scene and I didn't want to get into it. I'm much rather watching other stuff. Anyway, getting on to the next point. To add on to that, I tweeted and posted a comment that one of my friends, no, I'm not going to say his name, but he knows who he is if he listens to this. He brought up a really good point that if you fall in the water, off your ship. Say your ship is sailing. Your ship is going full into the wind. It actually has the wind with it. You can fall off your ship. And by the time the mermaid spawns, you can still see your ship. It doesn't have to get that far away. But if you take that merfolk taxi back to your ship, it forces you into a load screen. I'm not sure why that is, but I would love for them to work out a way that allows you to instantly, snap of a finger, go from the merfolk straight back to the ship, just plops you down. You don't have to go into a load screen. And that would be nice because essentially, from what I understand that's been explained to me, the assets are already loaded into what you're seeing. You're looking at your ship. You can see it. All the assets are there. Everything in the game is represented. I don't know. And they don't know because they're game devs. I don't know anything about this, but from what they've talked to me about, they don't understand why you have to load when going into a mermaid. Moving on, Jeff goes into the last tweet, which I think is a very important one as well, too. Griefing and spawn camping needs a revisit. If nothing else, maybe a ferryman can offer an option for spawning a new ship in the same region or different region rather than the current scuttle and wind up across the map method. really sucks on tall tales, and I actually have to agree with that. It's tough to be on one side of the island or one side of the world, spawn in on a new ship after getting sunk, or just having to scuttle your ship as a result of a grieving scenario, and end up with a new ship very far away, because it takes roughly about 30 minutes if you have no wind to get across the seas. Last time I checked, it may not be exactly 30 minutes. It could be shy of that, but it definitely takes quite a while. It's at least 10. And I think that's a really good point. I think that's a great idea to have us take a look and see if there's a way that we can talk to the ferryman and choose where we want to go, as opposed to just being automatically dropped on a ship somewhere. Essentially, we have to be sent back to somewhere. And if we're going to be sent back somewhere, then it usually loads us on an island on a ship that's pretty far away. So I just wanted to bring these up because, again, this seems to be a fairly big topic in the community, and it would be bad of me to not address some of the issues that I think people are having with the game, and reasons why they are hoping that their voices can be heard by Rare, so that they understand that these are important things for people to see, understand, and then help improve the game. Not necessarily by bringing content, because we while we appreciate all the content that we get, it doesn't help us if we aren't having fun playing the game because of issues that are dragging down the experience, because there's just a bug in the code that is breaking it for us, and we lose the immersion, we lose the desire to play because of that, and we want to play, but it's hard when you're running into so many issues like this. That was basically kind of the main thing as far as the Sea of Thieves dev update went. There is some good news. I will say that I'm looking forward to potentially, I don't know for sure, because this is all still new ground for us. We're still within the second year. And one of the things that they had last year was the gilded voyages. Now, if you got a gilded voyage, you could hang on to it for however long you wanted. It didn't matter. You could save it for all year, and you could now have another one if you wanted to. But with the gilded voyages, it was a good opportunity for you to get a lot of gold. You would get one voyage. It would be a very stacked voyage, and if you completed it, you came out ahead. I think, if I remember correctly, it was on average around 50,000 gold, which may not be as much as it used to be back when we didn't have things like Reaper's chests and things like that. But it's still a fair amount of gold. It's better than a fort in probably less time. So hopefully those are coming back with the December update. We'll know more later on, and I'll be talking about more in next week's episode after we get the update and we get a chance to dive in and see what's going on with it. One of the cool things that they did talk about that was going to be starting as at the start of December is the Black Market Archive. Now, a lot of people have a lot of stuff going on during this time of year, whether it's playing other games or visiting family, working more, getting prepared for the holidays. All of those things tend to factor in a lot when it comes to what time you have to play the game. And one of the things that they're doing is taking the merchandise that is available for the black market, which is now being represented by build rats in the form of Stitcher Jim, something I'm still not very happy about, but we'll figure that out later. And they're taking those items and making them available after the time that they were originally set for. So if you can't necessarily purchase something right away in December, then in January you should have the opportunity to still buy that. I don't know as many details about that yet, but when we do get more details on how and what that will apply to, I'll definitely be talking about that so you can understand better along with myself, if there's a chance that we can kind of pick and choose and not have to worry so much about time-limited content. The major problem that I see with this is a glut of cosmetics infiltrating an already prime store for glut of cosmetics. This is a problem that I'm noticing is when you build a game around cosmetics as the thing that defines you, and you build a system that allows players to have the same style of clothing but with a different color palette, you start running into this huge amount of cosmetics that just keep adding up and adding up and adding up. And this is a problem when you feel like you have to get as much of it as you can. Now, obviously, people are out there who have purchased everything. I've finally gotten to the point where I'm okay letting some things go, knowing that there might be a chance for them to come later. But I'm getting to a phase where I realize there's maybe 3 or 4 outfits that I have that I enjoy wearing, but I don't stray too far from unless something new comes in that really kind of piques my interest, and then I'll work it into whatever I'm wearing. But essentially, what we're running into is a lot of new clothing. And a lot of that clothing are just recolors of content that we already have or used to have in prior events. So I really, and I know this is something that will probably not go well with the rare devs, but there seriously needs to be consideration to an idea or a way to build a system that allows us to take clothing that we have and recolor it how we wish, giving us a dye system, giving us a way to change the color of the clothing that we have, and find a new way to get the gold out of our pockets and into the system. Because currently we have one way of transferring doubloons to gold, but we don't have a way to transfer gold to doubloons, and doubloons are starting to become more and more of the currency that is desired, because a lot of people tend to already have a lot of gold. So the thing that they want to make sure that they have is doubloons. And Rare really needs to start considering, or at least start talking about it. If you guys have a plan, Rare, if you're listening to me right now, if you have a plan on how to address the surplus of gold and eventual surplus of doubloons, I would love to understand how you plan on tackling that trouble in my mind, because we're not there yet. We're there with gold. We're basically there with gold, where a majority of people have enough gold to buy whatever they want when they want it. And if they won't, you're letting us get it later on. So there's really no reason for us to buy it right away. So that doesn't cut that out. But what about doubloons? What is the plan? What is the future prospects for how to plan around having so many doubloons that you don't necessarily need? I have friends that have 3,000 doubloons. I've seen more than that online. There's no way that they're going to need to spend that many doubloons on the content that's coming out. And at the rate that they're gaining them, it's easy for them to outpace the amount of content that is available for doubloons. And because of that, it's going to become less of a concern for them. They're going to care less about the loot. They're going to be more out just for griefing and not necessarily just trying to find treasure from other people. It's a hard problem to solve. I'm glad I'm not necessarily the one that has to do it, but I would love to broach the topic so that we can actually start bringing up some of these things with the community to see what a good way to fix the economy issue is. Now, maybe some people are probably looking at this and saying, well, there doesn't need to be a problem, or there doesn't need to be a fix with the economy. Everything's cosmetic. It doesn't influence power at all. So why does it matter how much people have? Well, when you have a lot of stuff, you don't necessarily need more of it. So what do you do when you have all the gold you need and you don't care about treasure? What do you care about? You probably care about experiences, and those experiences could be positive or negative depending on what you like to do in the Sea of Thieves. If you're a negative experience type person, or at least an aggro type person, then you're going to go out hunting people And instead of having any kind of threat of any treasure that you take, then you're basically going to just continue to go hunt them, because it's not about the treasure. It's about the it's the glory of being a cutthroat pirate, and not about the gold. So I would love for them, again, I'm got to be on the soapbox. I don't know how many times I have to, but I still would like to hear the argument for why crates of supplies can't be purchased. Why isn't that something that can't be purchased? And why do they feel like that's a thing that they don't want to dive in? Because from my perspective, and granted, this is my perspective, I'm one dude sitting here in with armchairs down, trying to tell people how to develop a game that I have no clue how it works, that the system that we have right now is headed for the same spot that we were in a year ago when they first introduced doubloons as more than just time-limited event cosmetics. When they started building up this system for us to get doubloons for cosmetics, and then started releasing recolors of cosmetic sets that we used to have available to us at exorbitant gold prices, to try and cut into that millions of gold that people have in their stashes. Sorry if this was really long-winded. This is, I should just title this "My Grief with Sea of Thieves," because I feel like this is all this episode has been. But again, these are not my words most of the time. These are your guys' words. These are your words that I'm hearing, and I'm trying to put out there so that anyone that's listening to Rare has a semblance of the frustrations that the community is having, as at least in the circle that I'm in. And I like to think that my circle is rather big, that I try to listen to as many people as I can, with as much time as I have. But a lot of that's dependent on you as the listener to inform me. Is this something that you're experiencing? Is this something that is frustrating you? Am I just hearing the loudest voices like I expect that I typically am with these kind of things, and that the majority of people are fine and don't care about any of this stuff, and it's not a big deal, and it's so overblown that really I should have just cut this whole thing down to maybe 3 minutes and moved on with something else by now? Let me know. I would love to hear more people's thoughts on how they feel about the state of the game, because really at the end of the day, I feel like I'm just one person with a few people that are talking to me in the Sea of Thieves community that are expressing the same thoughts that I'm having. And I want to know if I'm wrong on that. So let me know.
Sea of Thieves just keeps expanding,
adding more adventures for your crew.
Every month new updates landing,
bringing ways to play and things to do.
Settle back and fill your tankard,
Raise a glass to days of yore.
Make sure that you're firmly anchored. Here's a taste of all that's gone before.
Now, if you're enjoying that as much as I am this holiday season, then you'll be happy to know that the song, which is a take on Deck the Halls, is now out, available on basically every single streaming service for music you can imagine, whether you listen to Google Play, Apple Music, Spotify, all of the different versions, as well as some UK specific ones that I noticed, and Tidal, if anyone's still paying for Tidal. Sea of Thieves has released their version of Deck the Hulls, with a great kind of tribute to Sea of Thieves as a game. Now, the song is, I believe, I should have paid more attention when I was about to say this, 3 minutes, 43 seconds of the history for Sea of Thieves. And I sat down, and to the best of my ability, granted my earring is not what it used to be, but for the best of my ability, I went and wrote down all of the lyrics, typed it all out, posted a cute little JPEG of it for Twitter, and put that out into the world. So if you listen to it, you should be able to hear all of the different events and features that have been brought to the game. Maybe not everything, but enough to make some good rhythm for Deck the Halls, and find out kind of what's been added to the game chronologically. Now, there's one thing that I did want to bring up that I thought was interesting, and it has to do with towards the end of the actual song.
Coins from ancient caches, bringing home a pet to join our crew.
Did you catch that? I don't know if you did, but if you didn't, go back and listen to it again. At the very end, they talk about purchasing pets with ancient coin from ancient caches and bringing them to your crew. And then, I don't know who, but they happen to say, "Here, boy." And there was a little bit of a whimper, as if to suggest maybe dogs? I don't know. I honestly don't know if that was... Because if you think about it, Rare has a lot of dogs at their studio. So it would not surprise me, based on the fact that they sold a calendar just of the dogs of Rare, that they were just kind of tossing that in for fun, because it's kind of an easy way to explain pets as opposed to trying to talk about monkeys or parrots. But if this is maybe just a teaser, just a small teaser that they tossed in for the people out there like me who love listening to this. Now, bear in mind, I listen to this song a lot. Part of it for fun, but also I wanted to get the lyrics. So as I'm trying to write these things down verbatim, I couldn't help but get stuck on that bit. And I listened to it over and over and over again. And for the life of me, I swear that this is like a hidden Easter egg that they're in. Rare loves doing these little teases, that they're teasing that dogs might be coming as pets. Maybe soon. I don't know. Man, that would be kind of cool if you had a dog. Of course, if we did get a dog, I would absolutely want it to be one that could attack skeletons with me, or like attack pirates. Like I would want an attack dog the way I like having an attack wolf Link in Breath of the Wild. Wow, that was a weird reference. But yeah, I want an attack dog for Xbox reference. Xbox reference. Who had an attack dog in Xbox games? Did Max Payne have a dog? I feel like one of those games had an attack dog, but I can't remember from the original Xbox days, because that's the library that I know the best. Regardless, I'm getting off topic here, but it was cool. I love this song. It's definitely one that I've been listening to a lot. The holidays are here. It's really fun. I love this time of year. While I may not necessarily get too into it, I do still love all the atmosphere. I've been listening to Christmas music on the drive to work every day, and I love seeing all the Christmas lights and all that good jazz. So if you're having a holiday celebration this year, regardless of what you believe in or don't believe in, then I'm hoping that you're having a good one, and that this song is out there. Again, it's of Sea of Thieves. It's called Deck the Hulls, the original game soundtrack by Sea of Thieves. You can find it. I've been going through Spotify for mine, and it's pretty easy because they have all of their different songs on there. So like Who Shall Not Be Returning, Reaper's Respite, The Voyage of the Secret Shine, Stitcher's Sorrow. All of those different songs are all the Shroud Broken one. I love the Shroud Broken one from the Tall Tales 9. God, that's such a good song. That ending to the actual Tall Tale, so good. Man, thank you, Robin, for bringing people on to work on this one as well too. Such a cute collaboration for some of the Rare crew to come together and put out a holiday themed song. And if you haven't if you haven't checked out the album art for this, you really need to, because it's the coolest pirate ugly sweater t-shirt kind of pattern that I've ever seen, and I love it. And I want a sweater that, like an actual sweater, like a knit sweater that looks like this kind of design, because it's fabulous. I would wear it out. I wouldn't care. It would be awesome. All right, let's get into something else. All right, pirates, let's see if I can kind of rapid fire some of this community content that I found out there, or that came from you regarding the podcast or Sea of Thieves in general. Again, the dog wrote in with another email, so I've been really, really appreciative of these, and he's coming in with some questions that I think other people might actually find interesting. So he writes in and says, I may want to listen to the Spotify song as it may contain a few hints. I just covered that, so hopefully that answers your question. Also, do you know if it's possible to see other players or your crewmates in the Pirate Legend hideout if the hideout is on a different outpost? The reason I ask this is because since to get into the hideout, you have to go through a portal that could mean that all of the hideouts are the same. As far as I know, Dog, yes, all of the different outposts all link up to the same Pirate Legend tavern. There have been people that have camped out in there to kill people just to grief them. There have been other people who are other players who've run into each other at different areas in the world. I know I've done it personally as well too. So unless things have changed, bear in mind this was a while ago that I did this. I'm pretty sure that all of the portals lead to the same exact Athena's Fortune tavern. The next email that I got in asking questions came in from Panic Lemming. What is your best advice for tucking? And this is kind of a hard one because I'm not sure if you're talking about defending against tucking or tucking in general. So I actually reached out to one of the streamers that is fairly popular in Sea of Thieves that is known for tucking to see if I could get some advice from them. I have not heard back, but I'm hoping that at some point either I can get some information from them that they would recommend since they're kind of known for that, or maybe I can just get them onto the podcast to talk about it for a half hour or so and the state of the game and stuff. So for me, right off the bat, if you are planning on tucking, the best thing I can recommend is leave your ship pretty far. Cannon out to where you want to get onto the ship that you're planning on tucking on, and then swim a majority of the way. Make sure you have a full set of shot as well as food so you can take out any sharks if you can, but not to take out the sharks too close to the actual ship in case there's a spotter on the ship that might hear the gunshots, maybe a sword slash or something like that to actually kill sharks. I know a couple sword lunges are good, but you might take a shot from them biting you. And I would definitely recommend trying to board the ladder that is on the opposite side of where you think the pirates are going to be. So if their port side is to the island, then you want to board on the starboard and vice versa. The best thing I can recommend is hold out on the ladder till you feel like it's safe. Listen very carefully to if you have any footsteps or anything like that, bearing in mind that if you aren't wearing shoes, you're not going to hear those footsteps. Peg legs and shoes make sounds. Bare feet do not make sounds. So just be cautious of that as you're listening to try and see if anyone's on board. I would actually start recommending going to the captain's cabin and tucking behind the actual captain's chair. It's been long enough that was a popular spot for people to tuck that I think it's kind of been forgotten. A lot of people tend to try and either tuck next to cannons or up in crow's nests still or on the side of the ship. A lot of the time, I think people are starting to forget that there's the spot behind the captain's chair in the actual captain's cabin. So you might want to give that a shot as well. Other than that, the biggest thing I can recommend is if you get caught and you're trying to stay on the ship, always prioritize your health. Always make sure that you were keeping your health up, even between like the opportunity to reload your weapon. If it means either reloading your weapon or eating a coconut or a pomegranate to keep your health up high, go with the health, because if you're dead, doesn't matter if your gun was reloaded or not. But if you can stay alive, then you've always got more time to be able to reload your gun or get in a good sword slash or things like that. I would definitely recommend trying to wait as long as you can when you are tucking so that you can either coordinate with your other crew member to make a distraction so you can try and make off with some good loot. The trouble is if you grab anything that's marked on the map like Reaper's chests, those are going to be really hard to get away with. So I would definitely recommend trying to sneak off with other things. Also be cautious of your mermaid when you're swimming to a ship. If you plan on on tucking on that ship and that mermaid is spawning, you want to try and get it you want to try and approach the ship from a direction that people won't typically be looking at. So either from the side that's opposite of wherever they're parked, if you think they're on the island, or towards the stern, where they may not be looking back behind them to see if there are any mermaids spawning. You can always try and take a rowboat too. Rowboats are still fairly effective in getting onto a ship, and some people don't always grab one when they're out sailing too. So sometimes you can get on their ship fairly effectively with a rowboat. Or if they have a rowboat, a good way to get away is to grab a couple chests or whatever you're trying to grab, toss it into the rowboat when they aren't paying attention, and then try and make off with the rowboat once they've set sail. And they may not recognize that the ship has actually left the rowboat, you and the treasure in with it. Now, to kind of turn this on its head and play devil's advocate, you're trying to defend against tucking. The best advice I can say is, if there is a ship in your sea, if you can see the ship, then there's always a chance that they have somewhere left a crew member nearby that can get onto your ship. Never assume that because you see the ship and it's far away that they haven't already been planning this out for a while. They could have been swimming for a while. They could be using a rowboat. Rowboats tend to be a lot harder to spot out on the sea compared to an actual ship. So try and keep an eye out on ships and where they are. Try not to lose track of them when you're actually out on doing voyages or working on forts, things like that, and be very cautious. Keep a very open eye for mermaids, because merfolk are going to be your first clue that someone's in the water. Also keep an eye out for sharks as well too. If there's a shark swimming around and no one's been in the water for a while, that's a good clue that someone's been hanging out in the water long enough for a shark to swim up on it. The next thing I would recommend is to ensure that you're checking the ladders. And if you think that someone's trying to board your ladder, instead of standing in front of the ladder to shoot them as they're coming up it, hop on one of the railings on the side and actually see if you can get an angle looking at them at a flanking position. Try and shoot them from the side of the ship, standing on the railing, as opposed to waiting for them to actually get to the top of the ship, because sometimes if they are able to grab the ladder, if you use a blunderbuss or a sword, you can knock them off, but they can still grab that ladder back. Whereas if you've got a good shot on them from an angle, they're not anticipating getting shot off of it, so they're not going to be as ready, so you can get more shots in. One of the other things I can recommend is anytime you come back to an island after everyone's been gone, scour the ship. Head from bow to stern, from crow's nest to keelhaul, and or keel, not keelhaul. I'm thinking other things. Sorry, from crow's nest to keel. Keep an eye out. Look on the masts. Check the captain's cabin. Check the back railing. Check underneath but next to each of the cannons. Keep a close eye out for anything, and use your sword too. You can slash your sword and knock anyone out of an emote if they take damage. And it's a wide enough arc that you can generally get a good shot on just about anything. But head to each deck, and only one person really needs to do this. But if you have your lantern out and you walk, you don't run, then you're going to be more inclined to actually catch someone if they are. And if you aren't sure, just use your sword. So hopefully this helps out. Hopefully this gives you an idea of some ways to kind of approach tucking, if that's something that you're looking to do because you want to play that long con and actually get in there and try and get some good treasure out of it. Or if you're trying to defend against it. I hope this helps out for you. And again, good luck, because it's always fun to see if people can manage it. But it's definitely one of the harder things to do, as opposed to just taking on an entire ship and sinking them and taking the treasure for yourself. Most of my friends generally just like to go out, sink the ship, take all the loot, and then run off with it and bait the other crew back into another fight with all their treasure on their ship now. Ahoy there, Captain Logan. Bad Trevor Black here to share with you a thrilling adventure in the Sea of Thieves. The Rogue Sea Dog. This adventure started in the tavern of Ancient Spire Outpost. I be sitting there having a drink of grog, listening to my favorite pirate tune in the tavern, thinking about my most recent triumphs in solving the tale of the sea-bound soul. My belly rumbled in hunger, and it was time to eat. I plundered some worms, leeches, and grubs in the tavern barrels and headed outside. It was a beautiful, sunny day with a peaceful breeze. I ran down to the pier to greet my most prized ship, a brigantine called the Rogue Sea Dog. There it be, with its magnificent purple hull featuring teal skulls going across the bottom, the sails with the eye-catching teal color of 3 purple skulls with a cutlass underneath, completed with the Kraken cannons, capstan, and wheel with a Kraken's eye in the middle of it. I had had my glorious adventures with this ship, and I was ready for one more. However, when I was about to board, I noticed a chest sitting on the pier. I opened the chest. Nothing was inside. My curiosity began to grow. I ran towards the gold hoarder's chest, and there, to my surprise, were 3 more chests. I opened them all, but the gold was already sold, and nothing was inside. Curiosity turned into panic as I began to imagine that the filthy sea dog who left the chests could still be here. And worse, could he be watching now? "It's a trap!" I yelled out, quickly ran back to my ship, jumped on board, lowered the sails, and raised the anchor. The anchor raised, and I sailed away from Ancient Spire with no person in sight. With all the panic, I startled my first mate, Captain Morgan, who was sleeping in his parrot cage and now was frightened. I got him out, and we began our adventure to fish. As we set sail, I noticed a red and green light to the east of the ship. Could it be the legendary myth of the Reaper's Chest? It be true. As clear as day. However, it was located in the feared, terrifying Devil's Roar. I've lost many ships sailing into the fiery, treacherous blasts of volcanic region, and I did not want to lose the Rogue Sea Dog. But rumors have said of many doubloons for tuning in the Reaper's Chest, and I could not turn down this opportunity. Filled with excitement, I angled the sails and headed towards the red and green lights in the Devil's Roar. As I sailed towards the Reaper's Chest, another one had appeared. Shiver my timbers! Twice the doubloons, twice the glory, and twice the grog I can buy. I pulled out my Kraken telescope and searched for other ships. None in sight. I go down to the map and check where the chest's locations be. The first one is behind Tri Rock Isle, east of Skull Keep Fort and west of 3 Paces Seaport. As we come up to the first Reaper's Chest, I raise the sails to stop the ship, anchor still raised. We have reached our destination. The red light from the Reaper's Chest is right in front of me. And as I go to the front of the ship, ready to jump into the water, boom! The ship shakes from underneath me. I look up and a large galley with black and red sails is soaring by. Boom, boom, boom! 3 more cannonballs hit the Rogue Sea Dog, and I can hear the bottom start to fill up. I go to the cannons, desperately load a firebomb, aim at the galley, and fire. Just missed. The creaking of the water filling the ship is getting louder. I drop the sails and try to escape. I get back to the wheel, and it's been damaged. My heart drops as my prized possession of the Kraken wheel, made from a real Kraken, is now missing 2 limbs, and I have to replace it with normal wood. I begin to bail furiously to avoid sinking, and I'm able to save the ship. Only 3 holes were made this time, and it was easily fixed. But knowing that I will not get the Reaper's Chest, the first Reaper's Chest, was a sinking ship feeling of its own going on in the back of my mind. However, there is still one more. Thinking that the galley would set sail for the first one immediately, I could beat them to the second. I turn the ship around and head northeast to the second Reaper's Chest. I see the parked galley at the galleon's grave anticipated, and furiously sail by, seeing it from a distance. This time, I made it to the Reaper's Chest unmatched. However, it may not be for long. I raise the sails and dive into the water to explore the shipwreck for the Reaper's chest. I search the captain's quarters first. Nothing there, of course. And then I dive into the main part of the shipwreck. The chest is not on the first floor, and I keep searching. I find a blue mermaid gem that's worth a ton of gold, but I don't have time for that because there's only one thing on my mind: the Reaper's chest. I find the chest at the very bottom, pick it up, and take it back to my ship, hoping the rogue sea dog is still there. It is. I put the Reaper's chest on the deck and drop sails. I see the galley has moved from Galleon's Grave outpost, but I'm not taking any chances of being ambushed, so I locate the next closest outpost, Daggertooth, and set sail there. Wind at my back, I had an easy sail to the outpost with no problem, surprisingly. I always expect a kraken or a skeleton ship to pop up and ruin my plans, but not this time. It was to be not denied. I park the ship at Daggertooth and jump on the pier with the Reaper's chest in hand. I run towards the tavern, hoping nobody else is here. I'm alone, and I sell the chest and receive my long-awaited prize of 25 doubloons. But my day is not done. There is only one thing left on my mind to do: revenge. I get to pick up some firebombs and cannonballs at the outpost, jump on my ship to find that filthy, disgusting, egregious galley that had the audacity to take the life of my rogue sea dog and first mate. Their evil deeds will not go unpunished, and I will find them. And I did. Located them northeast of the outpost and set sail. Angled all sails with the wind with me and headed right for them. They see me coming, and I see their ship start to aim towards mine. We're on a path to meet, and a cold chill runs down my spine. As I'm ready to get my revenge, as we get closer, I go to the front of my ship, firebombs in hand, waiting for the collision. I say goodbye to the rogue sea dog, as I know this will be the last time I see it in a while. I take a deep breath as the ships collide. I jump onto theirs and spot two enemy pirates. I immediately throw down a firebomb and BOW! Hits the front of the ship and begins to catch fire. I run around to the top of the ship and throw another firebomb. BOW! Engaged with the mainmast, and it's in fumes, in flames. I'm running down to the bottom to set the rest on fire. I make contact with the middle deck and set it on flames while dodging blunderbusses and sniper bullets. However, when I went to the top again, I felt a sharp pain in my back as I was stabbed by a cutlass. With health fading, I ran to the front of the ship and threw my last firebomb into the captain's quarters. I then received my fatal blow, and I was stabbed again. My last vision was seeing the entire galley that once attacked me engulfed in flames and confusion. One of the pirates caught fire and was killed. My revenge was a success. I will now meet my beloved rogue sea dog once again after a visit in the Ferry of the Damned. Hope you liked it. I love listening to the podcast. I can write more adventures in the future if you do. Signed, Bad Trevor Black. Trevor Black. That was a wonderful story. Thank you so much for writing to me with it. I'm sorry if I botched any parts of that. This has been a story that I've been holding on to for, almost a couple weeks now, that I've been wanting to get into the podcast, but it's one of those ones that it's long, and I wanted to get it all onto the podcast so that everyone could enjoy it. I do have one more that is on my to-do list, and this one comes in from, let me see if I can find the name. It doesn't say the name. So I will have Mr. Windsor and Mr. Haynes. So that one will probably be next week, pending any major issues that come along with the next update. As long as things are in place and I can talk about the major points, I will try to get this in for you, since this is already a week old. So if you enjoy these stories as much as I do, send me yours. I would love to read your story on the podcast because it's a part of this world. Your stories make up Sea of Thieves as well as my own, and I enjoy sharing yours with everyone else as much as I enjoy reading them for my own. So if you want to get a hold of me, you can always do so by email, captlogun@gmail.com. Tell me what your favorite story is that you've had on the Sea of Thieves as we start getting into this holiday season and being thankful for the things that we have. What's something that you had out on Sea of Thieves that you were thankful for? Are you thankful for the time where you're sailing with a Reaper's Chest to Daggertooth Outpost and you don't get hit by a Kraken or a ghost ship or a skelly ship, or a Megalodon, and it totally ruins your plans? What are you thankful for? Let me know what your stories are, and I will get them into the podcast this month to help celebrate what we're thankful for, and to celebrate the holidays and give some good stories to the community. If you want to get a hold of me just for whatever, if you want to talk to me, there's plenty of ways to do that. The best way is obviously going to be in the Discord, where I troll around and make sure that people are doing good things and are getting together and having fun, talking about the things that they're enjoying. Right now, a lot of people are trying to get some of the last few things in before December 11th, because that's when all the new content goes, and that stuff isn't going to the archive, by the way. Everything that's available right now will not be in the archive. It's only starting in December with the new update. So try and buy what you need to, if you need to, and get it before it goes out of the game in the next few days. So that's coming out this week. Don't forget. If you want to get a hold of me, though, definitely join the Discord. Get a hold of me through Twitter @CAPT_LOGUN. If you're listening to this on YouTube, feel free to leave a comment. Feel free to like, subscribe, all that good YouTube jazz that I don't really get too deep into because I mostly focus on it being an audio medium for everyone. So if you're looking at a stagnant image and you're wondering why it's so boring all the time, that's why. But I do love that you listen to it on YouTube. I do appreciate that. And other than that, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. If you want to get a hold of me through Xbox, you can always send me a message on Xbox @CAPTAINLOGUN. And I think that's it. Oh, I've always got merch out. So if you are a family member or a friend and you want to help support me with the podcast and get your loved one a t-shirt representing Keelhauled, I went out to the Sacramento Gaming Expo today, and I represented Keelhauled, and it ended up getting us a new listener. Someone actually recognized Sea of Thieves, and I got to talk about Sea of Thieves at the Gaming Expo, which was really awesome. So I always appreciate getting a chance to talk about that. So Lita, thank you for getting some photos and talking to me about your son and his not presence at the Gaming Expo because he was playing Sea of Thieves. I love that as an excuse for not going to a Gaming Expo. But again, there's merchandise. Links are always in the show notes, as well as links to anything that I grabbed information from as far as content-wise goes. So that's always in the show notes. And Pirates, I think that's going to do it. A little bit longer episode. So if the rant in the middle of the episode got a little too ranty, sorry again. Until we start seeing some of these things get remedied, it's going to be on the forefront of my mind. And then once everything is fixed and whatnot, then everyone's all like, I don't remember this game being that bad. Where's the content? So you know how this works. Anyway, Pirates, thank you. I love you, and I look forward to sailing with you on the Sea of Thieves.